Welcome to this free immigration help channel. In this video I will show you how to fill out and submit application for temporary protected status, form I-821. Before we begin, I'm gonna say, as I always mention in every video that I make on this channel, this is not a legal advice. I am not an immigration attorney. All the information provided in the videos on this channel are directly from official government sources, like in this case US Citizenship and Immigration Services. So without further ado, let's begin with the application. I'm gonna start with the navigation. So we're gonna go to the home page of the US Citizenship and Immigration Services website. This is what it looks like. It is USCIS.gov. Just a little word of advice: make sure that you always get information from official government sources, and usually you can tell by the extension GOV, which stands for government. So we're gonna go and click on forms here at the very top of the navigation menu, and then we're gonna click on all forms, and that will pull up the page with all of the forms that are available from USCIS. Now you can scroll down and find it. It's in alphabetical numerical order, so we are looking for the form I-821. Here you go, or alternatively you can just type it in here, 821, hit enter, and it will come up. There we go. So what is a temporary protected status, really briefly, if you are not familiar with it? Basically, if you think about the asylum, which is a permanent status for the most part, right? You are not planning to go back to the country. In a temporary protected status, it is pretty much the same thing, only temporary, which means that you are temporarily prevented by some circumstances, whether it is personal to you individually or there is something going on that is in the country that is happening, you know, civil war, natural disaster, and you are not able to return to that country and you're located currently in the United States of America. You can ask for the temporary protected status so that you can remain in the United States without risking your life returning back to the country where you came from. Obviously, as you can imagine, there is a certain list of countries that meet that eligibility, and this list is constantly updated. There are either extensions for certain countries, they're either removed from the list or added to the list. How you can find those countries? Okay, so we're going to click on the temporary protected status designated page. It's not the application page, but it's more of an about page. I will put the link in the description below. Here you go, with USCIS.gov /humanitarian/temporary-protected-status. And here you will find all of the countries that are currently designated for the TPS. And as you can see, there are quite a few of them. There's Afghanistan, Burma, which is Myanmar, Cameroon, El Salvador, Ethiopia, Haiti, Honduras, Nepal, Nicaragua, Somalia, South Sudan, Syria, Ukraine, Venezuela, and Yemen. And of course, you know, these countries, you know, if you're more or less familiar with what's going on in those countries, you know that the situation there is not it's not very favorable. So it only makes sense for Department of Homeland Security to allow people that are the nationals of those countries or that were residing in those countries and are currently residing in the United States of America to be able to file for that temporary protected status. On this page, you will find quite a lot of information, so I do recommend checking it out before you actually begin with the application. You will find, just briefly, what is TPS. All right, the temporary protected status. I'm just gonna call it TPS from now on, just abbreviated. Eligibility requirements. All right. So, for example, let's say you are from Ukraine, you lived in Ukraine, but you are not Ukrainian. All right. So, in your passport, you have different nationality. What's gonna happen in that case? Are you eligible? These answers to these questions you will be able to find here. And along the way, as we go with this application here, if you have any questions, just put them in the comments below. Every other day I try to make a video, it goes by volumes, where I'm answering all the immigration questions that I receive on this channel. And basically I'm just going through the list of comments and I just answer them one by one. And if I'm answering your question, I will notify you that it has been answered, and you can watch the video and watch the response. Alright, so back to our form I-821. Probably one of the very first things you notice is that there is an option to file this form online, which is really good news. Why? Because when you file the form online, you save so much time. Not only you save a lot of time, it's processed much faster, but also you prevent the possibility of some mistakes that you can potentially make in a paper application compared to an online application. So with that being said, in this video I will be showing, because obviously to file it online you actually have to create a real USCIS online account, you actually have to start an actual application, fill out the real information, and then pay the fee online. Everything is online, submitting the evidence online, everything is online. In order to do that, obviously you have to do it the real information, right? So in this video I'm going to show you the paper application, which is exactly the same questions, exactly the same information that is being asked, just in the paper format. Again, if you don't like online, if you don't want to do it on the computer, you can definitely print out the paper application, fill it out, and mail it if that's what you want to do. And I will actually show you where to file it and the filing fee. We'll talk about all of that in this video. So without further ado, let's get into the actual application and the instructions. As you can see, there are 2 PDF documents. We will start with the instructions. Again, if you can kind of briefly go over these instructions, I would recommend doing that, just so that you're better familiarized with the process. And as you go along, obviously you can refer back to these instructions as well. So let's finally start. I know 6 minutes later, sorry, but it's a long introduction. But let's finally start the application for temporary protected status. As you can see, as the application starts, there's a big field here where you're not going to be touching anything at all. Nothing filled up here. This is all for the immigration officer's purposes. So as you can see, there's a start here at the bottom, and we're gonna start with this. Now in online application, you're not gonna have any of that, obviously, so you don't even have to worry about it. This is just for those who fill it out by hand on the piece of paper. So obviously the very first question, the part 1, would be the type of application. Is this the initial application, or is this the re-registration? Now in certain instances, the Department of Homeland Security might extend certain countries. Let's say, for example, let's say Ukraine, right? They say, okay, you know what? There's a conflict in Ukraine. There's a war going on in Ukraine. We're going to issue the eligibility for that country for temporary protected status for the nationals and people who live there, right? And we're going to do it. We're going to give it for the next, let's say, 18 months. Okay, so 18 months pass, certain people are on temporary protected status, but the conflict is not yet over. In that case, Department of Homeland Security might say, okay, you know what, we're going to extend the temporary protected status for Ukraine for another 18 months. So now, because you're getting closer to the expiration of your existing temporary protected status, now you have to file another application for re-registration. All right, and in those instances, this is what you will be selecting. So this is a pretty important selection here. Now, moving further, if you selected item number 1B, which is the re-registration, please indicate who granted your TPS. Now, there will be 2 options. There will be USCIS and there will be an immigration judge. Now, what is the difference between the two? Well, whenever you get the grant from you, whenever your case is approved by USCIS, your initial application is approved by USCIS. That would be the USCIS answer here. But sometimes USCIS does not grant the decision that you are expecting. They don't approve your case, they deny your case. In those instances, you might file an appeal, and the case might actually be transferred to an immigration judge or Board of Immigration Appeals. And if they approve it, in those cases, you will be selecting this. All right. So again, pretty important distinction between the two. Are you also filing a request for employment authorization? Now, a lot of times, if not a lot of times, or most of the times, I would say all the times, it's a huge benefit to to this program, to being part of the TPS, the fact that you are able to legally work in the United States of America. And once your TPS application is approved, you also receive the Employment Authorization Document, with which you can go to Social Security Administration, apply for Social Security card, and go ahead and start legally working in the United States while that temporary protected status is valid. So here you go. There is an answer, question for that in this application. So most likely it's going to be yes, I'm requesting an Employment Authorization Document, and I'm filing Form I-765, which is a separate form, specifically application for Employment Authorization Document. Now, I've done a separate video on it, so if you're interested in how to fill out that application, you can find it there. Or you can say, no, I am not currently requesting an EAD. In case if, for example, this is my re-registration and you already have a valid EAD, and then you're putting name of designated TPS country under which you are applying. Now, this is obviously very, very important. Again, if you're from Ukraine and you cannot go back, Ukraine, it's Somalia, it's basically the country from this list right here. There you go. It's going to be one of these countries. Again, if your country is not on the list, it means that for your country there is no eligibility for the TPS. Keep that in mind. Now, moving further, part 2, we're gonna go very quickly because it's very straightforward. It's all about you, your last name, first name, middle name, if any. If you don't have a middle name, just put NA, not applicable. Don't leave any blank spaces in the paper application. If you're filling out online application, you don't have to worry about any of that. In the paper application, don't leave any blank spaces apart from this top part right here. This is for immigration officer. Everything else in the application, don't leave the blank spaces. For example, moving further, other names used. If you never used any other names, not applicable, not applicable, not applicable. You get the point, all right? No blank spaces, very important in the paper application. US mailing address. This is the address where you get all your mail, obviously. US physical address. This is the address where you actually live. And as you can see here in the paper application, you can't type it up. So you'll have to actually print it out and then fill it out by hand. Black ink, keep in mind. And try to keep it print. Very nice, easy print that, USCIS officer that's reviewing your application, they don't make any mistakes. Obviously, alien registration number, if you have any. USCIS online account, if you have any. If you don't, that's fine. Just put none. That's not a big deal, or not applicable. US social security number, if any. Date of birth, obviously. Other dates of birth used, if any. Now, this one, I know there's going to be some questions. I'm not sure why would anybody. I've never seen it. This interesting thing is I've never seen it in literally any other USCIS application. Only here. Not sure why. I guess some people have more than one date of birth, or maybe they changed the date of birth. I don't know. But if you do, there you go. You have not one but two different fields. I'm pretty sure this is going to be updated in one of the further editions and just gotten rid of completely. By the way, speaking of the edition, you can find the edition date at the very bottom of each page. As you can see, it is from 07/03/2019. Okay, moving further, got gender, city, town, village of birth, country of birth, countries of residence, country or countries of citizenship or nationality. All right, again, listed all of them. Your marital status, all right, single, married, divorced. Information we're still in part 2, information about you. Date of current marriage, if currently married. US entry information. Now, this is very, very important part because, again, this thing right here is part of one of those eligibility requirements. You have to be in the United States to apply for the temporary protected status, and you also have to show that you maintained the residency in the United States. Not necessarily being a permanent resident, but you actually were physically present in the United States. So this is very important. Date of last entry, all right, when you last came to the United States. Immigration status, when you last entered the United States. For example, visitor, student, or if you came in without no status, which is very, very rare cases, but you get the point. So very straightforward. You don't have to, if you want to be more detailed, you can say B1, B2, visitor or tourist, or visitor for pleasure, or something like that. but you don't have to. You can just put the visitor. That is completely fine. Place of last entry. So where'd you come? New York, right? JFK Airport. City or town, state. Form I-94. Now that's the arrival departure record. It's available online. I have made a video on how to pull up that arrival departure record. If you're having problems with it, I've done the video on how to contact the CBP. Basically, the answers are here on this channel, but that's what you will be putting here. This is very important. Most likely you have that, so definitely make sure to enter that here. Date your authorized period of stay in the United States expired or will expire. All right, so again, that's the information shown on your Form I-94. Passport number, travel document number, if any, additional passports, if you have any other documents like this, country of issuance for most recent passport or travel document, expiration for the same. Your current immigration status, or lack of status. Again, if you entered as a student, you still are probably a student unless you filed some kind of petitions or applications, but most likely it's going to be the same thing. Just put it here in this field. Are you now or were you ever in immigration proceedings? Either yes or no. Again, if you started an application for something or petition, you'll say yes. If not, then just select no. Again, if you answered yes, provide the following information. What type of proceedings? Is it in the immigration court? Is it in the Board of Immigration Appeals? Or I'm no longer in Department of Justice or Department of Homeland Security immigration proceedings, but I am or was in federal court proceedings regarding immigration issues. All right, if that applies to you. And then if that's the case, then you will put the locations. All right, so moving further, we got dates of your proceedings. Again, if there is anything else happening, you will put that here. Then we're moving to the part 3, which is very, very simple. I think we're, for the most part, done with the hard part with this application. This is where you're selecting your ethnicity, race, height, weight, eye color, hair color, information about your current spouse, if any. If none, you can just skip the whole thing, but if you are filling out, it's pretty much the same thing. USCIS online account, alien registration number, if any, name, mailing address, just a date of birth, all the good stuff basically about your spouse. Information about your former spouse, if any, again, the same thing. Information about your children, if any, same exact information as was the spouse. Same stuff. They're asking, mailing address for each child, the alien registration, USCIS online account number, names, right? You get the point. Very straightforward. Moving further now to the part 7. Part 7 gets a little bit more important. Basis for eligibility. Provide the following information. I am a national of, again, as we've been filling out in the very beginning, right here, the name of designated TPS country, right? Which country, based on your applying for this temporary protected status, right? So this is what they're asking here once again. I entered the United States on the following date. When did you enter? Have you ever traveled to and entered another country other than the one listed in item number 1A, which is here, before you last entered the United States? Again, yes or no. Name of all the other countries to which you traveled, if any. Dates that you were in other countries. Again, if any, you're filling that out. Have you ever been offered an immigrant status by another country that you did not accept? Again, yes or no. And the reason why they're asking these questions is because they want to establish that you really do qualify, that you really are eligible for the temporary protected status. Why? Because if there's another country that is willing to host you while the stuff is happening in your home country, that might not necessarily be an indicator that you are eligible for a temporary protected status. Why? Because you do have other options, right? And temporary protected status is for people that don't have other options. They have to stay here in the United States and basically wait out until whatever, the war or a natural disaster is over back in their home country. 6, if you have answered yes to the above, you'll have to provide the details. 7, same thing, provide the details. Immigration and criminal history, human rights violation, you will have to go through all these yes or no questions. have you ever committed any serious crimes and terrorism and all that sort of stuff. So if there are any basically criteria for inadmissibility, this is where it would be. So you'll have to go through these all these questions and answer yes or no, obviously truthfully. Still part 7 going on eligibility. There's quite a lot of them, as you can see, but once you've done through all these questions, which are, I mean, they're very straightforward, you can't confuse it. Have you ever recruited, enlisted, conspirated, or used any person under 15 years? Obviously, hopefully that's all those no, right, all these questions. But once you're done with that, we're moving on to the part 8, which is the end of the application. It's just your statement saying that, hey, I can read, understand English, or no, I don't know how to speak English. I actually had a translator, interpreter help me fill out this application, whatever is the case. But once you're done with that, once you select the appropriate option here, you provide your phone number, email address, and I recommend providing all of that so that there's multiple ways for USCIS to contact you, just in case if they need to. Your signature, obviously you can sign the paper application here. In the online application, you will be just putting your printed name, and that will be considered your electronic signature for the online applications. But for paper applications, once you're done filling it all out, as much as you can on the computer, because it's easier, it prevents a lot of mistakes. You print out the application and then go through the whole thing, and with black ink, with a pen, you finish it up basically, and then sign it, date it. If you use an interpreter, there is a space for them for their stuff, their information, their signature, preparer's full name. Interpreter is the one who helps you kind of with the interpretation. Prepare is simply just fills it out for you. All right, so that's really the difference. And then there is some additional information, just in case if you run out of space on anywhere in the application. You can always put the page number, part number, item number, and then all the information that you were not able to fill it up in the application. So I'm sorry if I went a little bit too fast over this application. Again, if you have any questions along the way, ask me in the comments below and I will be able to address that. But let's talk about a few other things before I let you go in this video. So we're gonna talk about where to file this application, right? And how much it costs, because there is an actual filing fee, and we'll talk about the filing fee right now. It's not expensive. It's one of those applications that just has really an administrative fee, just processing, I guess, whatever. But it's not expensive at all. It's a $50 fee. There are a few different basically categories, but they're all for the most part either free completely or $50. And then there is an $85 biometric fee. Now you will have to go to the biometric appointment, to an application support center for your biometric appointment once you are scheduled. Basically the biometric appointment, if you're not familiar, you're just going there, you're doing the fingerprint, they take your picture, and that's really it. It's just for the background check purposes. Now, if you are filing online application, you don't have to worry about this at all. But if you do decide to file a paper application, there we go. I'm going to show you how to find the address. All applicants eligible to file TPS under one of the current designations may file form I-821 online. For more information, please see TPS page. If you choose to mail a paper application, use the corresponding address listed on the TPS page. So we're going to go to the TPS page and we're going to click on when and where to file. For information about when, please see the country specific pages left. So we're going to click on the country. And for purposes of this video, let's do Yemen. Let's do Yemen. We're going to click on Yemen. And where to file, there we go. Again, it looks like they really want you to file online, and honestly I would highly recommend filing it online. Why? Because it's much faster and it prevents unnecessary mistakes. But if you do decide to file it by paper in each individual country, there's a separate address, and as you can see here, for clicked on Yemen. Yeah, that's what I clicked on Yemen. And if you're sending with USPS, this is the address. If you're sending with FedEx, UPS, or DHL, this is the address that you are sending. So going back to our, there we go, application. The only other thing that I'm going to mention in this video is the checklist of required initial evidence. And once we're done with that, I will let you go. So very straightforward. It's not much that you will be required to provide whenever it comes to the TPS application. It's really just the evidence showing that you really are what your identity is and your nationality, right? If you really were a national of a certain country that is eligible for the TPS. Evidence to prove your date of entry into the United States, that would be your I-94. In this application, the I-94 is very, very important. So again, I've done a separate video on how to pull that up if you don't have it. Evidence to prove your residence in the United States, again showing that you are here, you're present in the United States of America. And then court disposition records if you ever had any kind of arrests or charges or anything like this. And that's really it. For the most part, as you can see, it's pretty straightforward. If you file it online, it becomes even easier. I'll put all the links in the description below, and if you have any questions along the way, just put it in the comments. And like I said, every other day I do videos where I go through all of the comments and answer your immigration related questions. So I'm really hoping that you found this video useful. Always appreciate your time. Thank you for watching. God bless, and I will see you in the next video.